don't even know where you're sitting at.
I can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history. I got that dog in me, yeah. Turn me up, big energy, got the crowd going nuts. I got that dog in me, any up. I take on anyone, I don't need a one-on-one. I got that dog in me, yeah. I'm talking all right, no bark. I could rip your squad up. I got that dog in me. So what's up? Yeah. So what's up? I told her move over. Enough of that mediocre I've been. The man since cruising around in the stroller. I got ice in my veins like a cut in Minnesota. Why not? Show you how I'm built. Come a little closer. Ayy, lot of heart, been smart. Aura got a glow. We can restart, give head start, still get the same result. I'm about mine.
Couldn't try to dunk on somebody. I said, well, this kid is, but he would do it having fun, and to me that's very important. Those are good things that you want to see in the beginning. And but then
you know who it sounds like you're describing?
No.
You sound like you're describing my countryman, Nikola Jokic.
Lot of heart, been smart, aura got a glow. We can restart, give head start, still get the same result. I'm about mine. Don't you get it confused? I'ma win again. Yeah, that's all that I do. I got that.
How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Team Canada survives Giannis and a late collapse, and not a great performance overall from Jamal Murray. A very encouraging performance from RJ Barrett, and a commanding late game heroics, I would say, from Shai Gilgeous Alexander. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be talking about Team Canada. We're going to be talking about FIBA basketball in general, what I think ultimately is the biggest threat to the United States. And we're going to be talking about Scotty Barnes, of course. And we're going to be talking about that viral clip that's been going crazy all over Twitter. I've posted it twice on Instagram, twice on Twitter. And of course, a lot of people have made their thoughts known. Some people are like, bro, this is an NBA player. He should be able to do a hezzy crossover pull-up. That's normal. But to those who are paying attention, I think you're noticing something new in Scotty's game. And I alluded to this in the previous live where I said Scotty's looked a lot better. Now we have some video of that, and we're going to talk about that. We are also going to talk a little bit about Ulrich Shamshay, or Yuri Shamshay, and my interview with his mentor, trainer, and the man who discovered him in Bafang, Cameroon. And what a delightful interview that was. I want to thank whoever it was, I cannot remember right now, the community member who suggested you should reach out to him, because the minute you suggested it, I did. I reached out to him. I didn't think of this. You thought of this. So salute to this community. And I wrote that, DM, as I've written many DMs in the past, and it came back and he said, I'll be happy to do it. And I was like, what? Amazing. I was so happy. And I knew that I was happy for two reasons. Number one, just speaking to him, it confirmed very quickly that this was a wonderful person. And I really just love having conversations with wonderful people who have been, not only, for those of you who don't know, he played for the Georgetown Hoyas with Allen Iverson under the late John Thompson. He has known Masai Ujiri since the 90s. So he has so many stories, and I hope that he will come back every year as Yurish continues to grow. And we can always talk about it, just as Brian has come back year after year, as Scotty has grown. And we're definitely going to talk about Scotty, and we're going to talk about Yurish. And I actually think that they both have a lot in common, frankly. And you're getting that from Scotty's biggest fan, right? And a lot of the stuff that I was seeing in Scotty's game is present in Yurish's game as well, specifically in terms of the joy that he plays with, the crazy, tremendous athletic upside he has, the service that he feels to the people who have brought him to this point. And so we'll talk about all of that. It was a brilliant interview. I learned a lot that I didn't know about Yuri Shamshay, and I think that you'll get a lot of appreciation for it. So you can definitely subscribe so you don't miss that one. That's coming out next week. I'm not going to tease it too much because then y'all not going to watch it and the video is going to tank, but I hope you'll support it. I hope you will enjoy it. It is a 90-minute interview that was supposed to be a 35-minute interview, but man, I had 16 questions and he was very generous with his time. So, very thankful to Joe Tuamu for that. And let's get on to it. Okay, so let's talk about Team Canada basketball first. Okay. First of all, Team Canada felt a little small on the inside, right? They've got a big rotation of Kelly Olynyk, Trey Lyles, Kem Birch, and sometimes when you're going up against a Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's tough. Dwight Powell fouls out. Lou Dort fouls out. Dylan Brooks fouls out. Luckily for them, they had Jamal Murray coming off the bench. I don't think he was great. I really don't. I think he's playing himself into shape, but it's a telling sign that he is coming off the bench because he is certainly the second best player on this team in terms of accolades and accomplishments and NBA standing. But sometimes it helps to have guys who are committed and who fit FIBA better. And we'll talk a little bit about what would make a certain player fit FIBA better than another. But RJ Barrett was a hero tonight, I think, for Team Canada. I think he got on the glass. You know, he had that really big offensive rebound, which helped them at a time when they were teetering. He got 6 of his 8 field goal attempts to go down in the paint. So he was relentless attacking the rim, as we've been comfortable, you know, as now watching RJ Barrett for more than half a season as Raptor fans. We know that he can get to the line and he can get to the paint, and he got to the line 6 times, which was bested only by Shai Gilgeous Alexander getting to the line 10 times. And it was really down the edge of the game when Canada was just hanging by a balance, and Greece kept coming back, that it was back-to-back plays, an assist from Shai Gilgeous Alexander, and then a 3 by Shai Gilgeous Alexander, and then a big bucket by Shai. And so it seemed like Shai really was picking his points, and, you know, large parts of the game, he had like 7 points, 8 points, and you're like, when is he going to wake up and really take over this game? And he didn't need to do a lot of that early, but he let his teammates cook. He had 7 assists. He was really a lead facilitator for this team. You know, in FIBA, it's not easy to get 7 assists. He was great tonight. I think the Raptors, I was going to say the Raptors, Team Canada is really missing Zach Edey. And I realize that that's a lot to say about a 22-year-old. But when you consider the size disadvantage inside that guys like Giannis were able to take advantage of, and guys like perhaps Jokic, Wemby, Rudy Gobert, guys like this are going to be able to take advantage of Joel Embiid if they end up facing the United States. That's a tough thing. Canada is smaller than your average bear, and they're playing super small with that starting lineup. I did not like Dylan Brooks' shot selection tonight, although, you know, relatively efficient, 14 points on nine attempts, pesky defensively. I thought Lou Dort was very impactful, you know, defensively, but again, both guys foul out. Canada, you know, starts the fourth quarter out getting into the bonus really early, just way too early. Luckily, they were bailed out by a lot of missed free throws down the stretch for Team Greece, including one big one from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Anthony Edger saying Star J. Yes. Well, he was absolutely a star tonight for them. Just taking a quick look at the team stats. You know, Canada loses they shoot better from the field, 43%, 32% from 3. Greece got a lot of open threes, right? And they got to the line equal times, even if I think Canada was the more assertive and aggressive team. Overall, really, it comes down to just making a few more shots than the other team and just getting by. Will Canada, I mean, Canada's in the toughest group, in my opinion, and it is not an easy road to the quarterfinals. But hopefully, you know, having the best player on your team is going to help. Most nights, Shai Gilgeous Alexander will be the best player on either side, and that will pretty much remain the case until you face Serbia. I could argue he's relatively even with Giannis, just a very different type of player. I think Shai is criminally slept on. I really don't think people understand how good this guy is, and frankly, I hope Canada fans understand how lucky they are to have him, because if he's the face of your program, given all the young players you have coming up, including Andrew Demhard, including Benedict Mathurin, including Shaden Sharp, if these guys start to blossom and develop, if Zach Edey is anything of consequence, and I have a feeling he's going to be much better in FIBA than he'll be in the NBA, then I think Team Canada has a future in which they will at least place medal each year. Okay. And I mean, there's teams like France, Serbia, Greece, right, that have very bright futures, especially France. And the world is getting better, better and better. And I think Team USA could be in trouble, actually. I think there's a lot to be said about that. Ocean God saying Shamshay is the future. Well, I have a feeling, actually, I'll bet money on this one. There is no chance in hell that Yuri Shamshay will ever play for another team other than Cameroon. Bet money on that one. This guy is so loyal. That's just what I got from that entire interview. His loyalty and his commitment to where he's from and his service in the community. And one of the things that we talked about with Joe was how he doesn't just do that from where he's from, but rather where he is. So anywhere he goes, he wants to be part of that community. He wants to help that community. And to those of you who have been following Pensar Basketball on other channels, as well as those of you who saw our short, there was that beautiful, day that he spent with the children because he's back now in Canada. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a very fruitful relationship between the Toronto Raptors and Yuri Shamshay, and I'm excited. Ocean God saying, who's better offensively, RJ or Scotty? Scotty, man. I mean, look, I don't want to get into this. There was like a little nasty, comment. I don't like to get triggered by the comments, but there was a comment on the RJ video that we made last time. This guy just going back and forth with me about, how great RJ Barrett is and how he's better. He impacts winning more than Emmanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes. And I don't understand that. You can be high on RJ Barrett, but please accept that there are certain times limitations. He goes left a lot and he doesn't necessarily go right as well. When you get into the NBA, when your deficiencies start to get scouted out, sometimes it really does hurt that he has these glaring limitations. But in the FIBA game, I have believed for a long time that a player like RJ Barrett would thrive more in FIBA than he would in the NBA. There's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, typically, because the court is a little bit smaller. Okay, let's just get this off the screen and then we can talk about this. So, because the court is smaller, it really does benefit guys who thrive in less space, right? I think RJ, there's a world in which RJ, in the 90s, had he been drafted, would have been a star, like a real star. The more you expand the space out, the more it's going to hurt a guy like RJ for two specific reasons. Number one, he's a good athlete, but he's not the burstiest athlete. He's not John Morant. He's not Zion Williamson. So that extra space is just more geography that he has to cover. On the other end, the same thing burns him defensively. More space, less rim protection in the NBA, right? Because there's defensive 3 seconds. The court is a little bit bigger. Bigs are often stretched out to the perimeter. And especially when you don't have, a traditional rim protector behind him like a Rudy Gobert, right? Like Rudy Gobert was there to protect Donovan Mitchell, right? And then, RJ is a much better defender than Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell was a good defender in college. So it just goes to show you that defending in space in the NBA is really difficult. And the more NBA teams space you out, especially when you start facing teams like the Boston Celtics, it can get really tough for a guy who's a little bit limited laterally and doesn't necessarily have that most elite burst to make up for it. A guy like Scotty, he also struggles in space, right? Point of attack defense has been an issue. Navigating screens has been an issue. But whereas they both struggle, Scotty is a vastly better rim protector. He's a much longer defender. He's a bigger defender. He tries a little bit more defensively. And frankly, just his bigness on defense makes him a lot more versatile. Whereas you might struggle putting RJ Barrett on a big or a really quick guard, you actually would be perfectly comfortable putting Scotty Barnes on a center, power forward, a small forward. He has more versatility. He's actually ranked number 1 in B-ball indexes, versatility index every year for the last 3 years, I think. So overall, I think Team France is the one team, in my humble opinion, that benefits the most from the switch to FIBA rules, right? You not only have a Victor Wembanyama, who we all watched block 10 shots against the Raptors, he is now in a position that is even more optimal for him, right? Now, I believe Team France just had their opening game against Brazil. They beat them. And I think Wemby's evolution is about to be crazy, right? I think he is so good right now. It is staggering to think that he is 19, 20 years old. And the fact that he's continuing to get better, obviously, as the games matter more, he is just suffocating defensively. And the future of Team France, especially if Alex Sarr, Tidjane Salon, Zachary Rissachet, right? All of these guys, if you really want to be completely honest, at least one or two of those guys would make Team Canada, given the issues on depth for Team Canada. So for Canada, really, it comes down to, will they be able to get guys to play, right? Because the talent is there, 100%. It is there, right? You have a key cornerstone in Shea. You have good building blocks in RJ. You have good young players, right? Good, another building block in Jamal Murray. How those three players fit together, I don't know. But if you stagger the lineups, it definitely works. Andrew Nemhard is fantastic. Benedict Mathurin, again, as I mentioned, the depth of talent, especially if they can get a couple more bigs in the program that work. I'm not really sure about Trey Lyles. There was that turnover towards the end of the game, which really allowed Greece some life, and that was crazy to me that Trey Lyles was bringing up the court, bringing up the basketball with Jamal Murray and Shai Gilgeous Alexander on the court. Right? I don't think Greece is good enough defensively to do that. There was a lot of brain farts too. There was that one play where Giannis just forgot. Like there's two possessions where Greece just completely forgot about the shot clock. Like one was Giannis, right? And just not really understanding, just holding the basketball and getting a shot clock violation. And there was another one where big fella had Jamal Murray, posted him up twice, and things were getting a little bit chippy. And he just completely forgot the shot clock existed. So again, I think Greece blew this one. Frankly, I think they could have had it. I really do, and that is a scary proposition for Team Canada, right? SP saying Sharp is being hidden for the Olympic scene, like he was hidden from the NCAA scene. I don't know. And again, a lot has been made of Chris Boucher. Could Chris Boucher offer a little bit more to this team than a Kem Birch or a Trey Lyles or a Dwight Powell, all of whom are journeyman role players? Not that Chris is much more than a journeyman role player, but at least he balls out and plays really, really hard. I don't necessarily think Chris Boucher would do really well in the FIBA game, and frankly, probably neither does Team Canada. Badgerbox saying Greece sure knows how to draw ticky tack fouls in FIBA ball. Ha ha. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Antoine Rose saying, I think to be fair, last year at FIBA, RJ was inefficient as well. He got better, is the only explanation. I don't think his play has anything to do with FIBA and more to do with confidence. Well, he did really well in the U17. And if you think last year was, an anomaly, I would say he's been great through groups, through this game and also through most of the pre-tournament games. So I think maybe you can consider last year a bit of a blip in the road, if anything else. I think he would do well in the FIBA game for the same reason Carmelo Anthony would do well in the FIBA game. He just does well in a phone booth, right? Like when you condense the game down and your handle is tight and you're strong, like Carmelo Anthony was strong. He could finish through contact, right? So Melo, guys who have like really effortless games that can be that they don't need a lot of head start, right? Like Giannis is a better NBA player than he is a FIBA player, in my opinion, right? More space is going to help Giannis to some extent because it extends the driving angles for his large strides, right? On the FIBA court, Giannis almost looks too big, right? So I personally think RJ is a fantastic FIBA player, and I think he'll continue to be a really big part of what they're doing. Also, want to say this is a call-in show. If you have something to say to the 180 of you watching, definitely call in. If you have some reaction on Team Canada, if you have some reaction on, certainly if you have some reaction on the Scotty tape, we're going to take a look at a little bit at that Scotty tape and just kind of break down what we saw from your boy Scotty Barnes and just, talk about it a little bit because, as much as I can say Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett are a really huge part of what's happening, and Yuri Shamshay and Grady Dick and Jacoby Walter might be a really big part of the future. This guy is your present, your future, your past. He is a really big part of everything you're doing right. And like Scotty's trainer Brian came on. DKAR music saying, look at how efficient RJ was with the Raptors, though. Even in the NBA, they can't stop him. He was very efficient. I will agree with that. I'm saying he's a better FIBA player than he's an NBA player. I'm not saying that he's a bad NBA player. Just to clarify my take on that. So Scotty's trainer, Brian, was on last year, and he talked about this being 15%. Last year was like 15%, but sort of off the record, we were talking about it, and I think he said, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and smack me if I get this wrong, said that he would hit 25 by the end of the season, and that would just be working from there. So if this is getting closer to like 40% Scotty, well then consider me very impressed because I want you to see how quickly he gets into this move, right? So we go right from the catch. This is a pass from Chris Boucher. Boom. So this is no wasted time. So we're right there, and he's less than 1 second away from catching it, and it's an immediate boom, right? Gets the defender off balance, right? But instead of taking that extra step or taking a step back or trying to push it into kind of like a soft post up, he is now going to convert all of this defensive attention into a very smooth pull up. I'm going to tell you why this is so impressive, and I'm going to wait for the slow motion part to explain why. So just take a look at this a little bit closer, okay? So it's right away on the catch. So he gets this guy off, and a lot of people saying like, "Oh, who is this guy?" It doesn't matter who the guy is. Scotty is a huge player. It doesn't matter who you're going to put in front of him. There's no one who's going to stop this. Some guys are going to have a better chance. Some guys are going to have a worse chance, but this guy doesn't. It's not like this guy's not defending really well. Like he's doing just a perfectly fine job. Just what Scotty's gonna do is next to impossible to stop. Okay. The important thing to watch here is the I want to call it the flow of motion, right? When you see really good basketball players, and I'm talking elite, like we're talking Shai Gilgeous Alexander, your Jamal Murray's, I'm talking about elite offensive players, even Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. There is no stoppage in momentum. That's why they're so hard to stop, because when they're dribbling, the motion to the shot or the motion to the drive is not stop, gather, go, right? It's not, y'all know what I mean? It's not like a disjointed thing. Everything comes down to how quickly things flow into one thing. It's the same thing with a jump shot, right? Jump shot should not be three different motions broken up. Like if you have three different motions, you can't be an NBA player. If you have two different motions, you'll barely ever make the NBA. If you have one motion, that's pretty much the only way to make it as an offensive player in the NBA. So it has to be one rhythm, one motion. Everything has to go in one flow. And that's how you can manipulate people. Because if things are breaking apart as you're doing them, like, oh, I got to dribble. Now I'm going to gather. Now I'm going to drive. You're giving the defender too much time. You will always, always have trouble. So watch how quickly he goes from the dribble to the jump shot. Just watch it. There's no stoppage in motion. This is what I've been noticing for 3 months with him. It's the same thing here. So he's surveying. He's not wasting dribbles here. Boom. There was a little freeze and then a go. And he's going all the way, head above the rim, go dunk. So he froze the defender and then he just blew past him. That's exactly the type of stuff that we see with, someone like an RJ Barrett, right? Where he's a lot more smooth traditionally, right? So that I think is a very, very important thing. Wait, what? SP has been talking about Paolo Banchero and Brandon Ingram since before we started this live. So I guess we can talk about that. Paolo gets an edge for being younger. Paolo's a better player right now. And I am not a Paolo super fan. I'm just saying that. I like Brandon Ingram a lot, but there are a lot of inefficiencies in Brandon's game. Brandon Ingram would also be a really, really fantastic FIBA player. Badgerbox saying, love this channel. Well, thank you so much. Scotty with that quick crossover leading to the shot is such a crazy improvement from last year. SP saying, but they're the same type of player. They're really not. I understand what you're saying, but being as good when you're 5 years younger should matter a lot, right? It is so important. Brandon Ingram's been playing basketball for a very long time. You can argue injuries derailed his career a little bit early on. That doesn't really matter too much to me. So overall, I think Paolo is a much better player at a younger age, and he's done a lot more in terms of playoff success already. I think he averaged 27 points per game in the playoffs last year. I think the conversation between Paolo and Scotty is valid. I give the edge to Scotty easily. It's not even an edge; it's a clear advantage. But then again, look at who I am, right? Like, am I necessarily objective here? I could be as objective as I want to be. I don't think I'm going to be objective about Scotty Barnes necessarily. But yeah, I think Scotty's a better player than Paolo. I think Paolo is a better player than Brandon Ingram at the same age. I think he's a better player right now, honestly. I really do. I think the work ethic has been clear. Tariq saying Shai got that dog in him, man. Said, "What's up, bitch?" Yeah, that ending was a little bit chippy. Allegedly, Shai Gilgeous Alexander said everything was squashed by the end of it, but did not look necessarily nice to end the game on that note. But I like that Canada stuck up for themselves, right? Jason Williams saying real GTA energy, Shai. I was riding in spirit. Shai, top 5 player in this league. Yeah, I think he deserves to be there. Jason pausing himself for riding. Okay. Shai was defending his cousin. Yes. To those of you who don't know, Nikhil Alexander Walker and Shai Gilgeous Alexander are cousins. David, top 3 maybe? No, that's where you lose me. So Luca for sure ahead, right? Jokic for sure ahead. I don't like Embiid. Y'all know that about me, right? I'm not an Embiid guy, but yeah, he's better right now. Tariq saying, "Yo, does Shai want to come back home? Like, damn, bro, the Raps need it for real." Do the Raps need him? Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's a top 5 player in the NBA. Who couldn't use a top 5 player in the NBA? I don't think I see that in the cards. Raptors don't have cap space, and OKC is not trading him. He's under contract. Seems like he's really, really bought in there, and I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him to succeed in the West. I think there's, yeah, I would like to talk about, overall, like the FIBA game and generally what I've seen from Team USA so far. And I've definitely watched more Team USA than Canada so far. So maybe that's not very patriotic of me, but yeah, I'm been very, very curious to see how Team USA would gel, and I think I can share some of my observations so far about them. I think they will benefit tremendously from Kevin Durant coming back. I think that could be a huge boost for them, right? I do think they've looked very disjointed so far. Just playing a lot of one-on-one, not really, and again, these teams, it's not that South Sudan is better than Team USA. It's not that they are, it's clearly Team USA has the personnel to blow teams out of the water, and they should be. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, well, the dream team faced 8 NBA players or 12 NBA players. This team has to face 63. Well, you know, let's be for real. Chris Boucher is an NBA player. That would count, right? Kem Birch is an NBA player. That would count. But Shai Gilgeous Alexander is a different class of NBA player. The United States is full of top 5 or ex top 5 or soon to be top 5 or once were top 5 type of guys. Like when you have an Anthony Edwards, Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Steph Curry, you should never lose. You really shouldn't. I understand that I'm talking about individuals in a team sense, but you also have Steve Kerr coaching it. You don't have, a novice off the street coaching it, right? So while I do not necessarily think that I've been impressed with Team USA so far, I find it very hard to believe that a team is going to beat them. But if a team is going to beat them, who would it be? Well, I would love to say Canada just because of who I'm talking to, but I've never been one to pander, and I'm not going to pander now. I don't think Canada has a chance to beat the Team USA. And that's just my opinion, and obviously you can feel free to disagree with me, and maybe patriotic or Canadian pride will make you think, yeah, 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 totally, Shea and someone can catch fire. First of all, any of these top 5 teams can beat any of these top 5 teams in theory, because when you have a one game situation, right? If you have a one game final or a one game quarterfinal, you just get hot, right? If Dylan Brooks starts hitting from 3 like a crazy motherfucker, right? Obviously, you're not betting on that going in. You're not banking on Dylan Brooks being super great, from 3. But what if, irrational confidence pays off for one game where Dylan Brooks looks like prime Steph Curry and he hits 8 threes? Well, now Team USA is in a world of trouble, right? A world of trouble because, shooting variance can make all the difference in the world in a game like this. So I could see that. I could see that, one game, one off. I just think the path is very difficult. If there are 2 teams that really do pose a risk, and right now it is, if I'm not mistaken, it's Canada. Canada's number 2 in the odds. USA is clearly number 1. They are like super favored to win. Canada's number 2, very distant second. And number 3 is France. Number 4 is Serbia. I think I agree with that in general. I would say that I think France should be higher, and I think Canada should be lower. It's very neck and neck there, and I understand that RJ and it's just Jamal Murray's defense. I think it really will come down to that. Like, what is Ayanyu saying? Is this live? Yes, yes, it is live. I mean, if it's not live, then I'm a magician, right? I think overall, it would be very, very impressive if Canada places second. I think that would be a major win for this country. And I think that would be a major boost to getting guys to play next time around. I think everybody wants to win one of these medals, right? And you really just don't want to be disappointed. Like, you don't want to be upset in a major way. And because you're in such a tough group stage, it could happen very early for Team Canada. LOL Canada, wait for Jokic. Yes. Tariq saying, Rob, when are you going back on Player's Choice? Do the MVP on there? Next week. Next week, I'll be on there again. So this week has been a very cool process of unearthing some stuff, and I'll talk about that right towards the end of this live. This live is, unless we get callers, this live is not going over an hour, so that's great. That's great. I like shorter lives in general. So overall, I'm very impressed with Team Canada's resolve towards the end, but I do think that they need to clean some things up defensively. And you saw it right in the last possession that Jamal Murray was subbed out on a defense for offense thing for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and you had major foul trouble. And I think you're having major foul trouble largely because you have defensive liabilities and you don't have a big. Anab Udine saying, I only watch Player's Choice when you were on it, Rob. I appreciate it, but you should definitely, if you're into I'm not the only person on there that knows what I'm talking about. They have some guys for sure. Ani, you saying they should play Simbler for center. I haven't watched Sim in a really, really long time, but I'm inclined to say no. What's your take on Vezenkov and all that series? What do you mean? Vegan Grass saying, did he talk about Scotty working out at TMU yet? Yes, we broke down the Chris Boucher, Scotty Barnes tape and just talking about how much more fluid Scotty is. Look, I don't want to dance around 500 subjects. I will say this, though. RJ looking good for Team Canada is a boost for the Raptors, right? It's great for Canada. It's great for the Raptors. And overall, it is a good confidence boost, right? For any prospect to do well on the world stage, especially if, he does end up winning a medal. That would be incredible. That would be a huge, I think, cathartic thing. He's obviously playing for Nathan, his brother, who passed away last year, as some of you know. And yeah, I think it would be just a really big thing to build. And he's playing with great players. He's playing against great players. Is certainly much better than playing a pro am. It's organized basketball, and I am looking forward to watching RJ's evolution next year. I really don't think he's as tapped out as some people think he is in terms of potential. I think he's got a lot more left in the tank, and I think he can be a better defender. I talked about it in the last live that I'm expecting him to have a really big year next year and maybe even be a sub all star. That would be good. Anab MTL is calling in. Anab, what's up? Hello?
Yo, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I just wanted to talk about what do you think about the 25 top 25 NBA under 25, and where would you place Scotty in it, and maybe even RJ? I think Scotty would be like up there in top 5, and maybe RJ in the
Is this a
lower
particular
20s.
article that you're referencing? Are you referencing a particular article? Like, did some top 25 under 25 come up and you're asking me for my reaction to it? Or are you just asking me randomly, where would I put Scotty in the top 25 under 25?
Yeah, I'm asking you where would you put him? I would put him maybe max top 5.
What do you mean max
Yeah,
top five? That's
I
the
would
max
put
you can do.
Victor obviously number 1, Anthony
Okay.
number 2.
Okay. Who would you put number 3?
And I would put maybe Scotty at number 5 behind Tyrese Halliburton and Maxi.
Okay. So you would put Scotty ahead of Chet. You'd put him ahead of you would put him behind Wemby. You would put him hmm.
I
Yeah, so I would tend to put Scotty in the top 10 and maybe as
definitely
high.
Wemby I put 1.
Right. So, yeah, of course, Victor Wembanyama is a clear number 1, and I think the divide between him, I think I would start exploring putting Scotty right after that. And the reason I say that is not just because we're a Raptors channel and we have to put, the Raptor player higher. And I know that most people would say there's no way that you can put Scotty above Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, given the season that they just had. I just think Scotty's further behind in his skill development than those guys, right? I think that he has some athletic gifts that those guys and passing gifts that 2 of those guys
Okay.
at least don't have. And then in terms of Tyrese Halliburton, he's such a defensive liability that I find it really hard to place him above Scotty, even if I can accept that in a vacuum he had a much better season last year, and we will all be very happy if Scotty replicates what Halliburton did last year. I totally get that, but the upside, Scotty has to be number 2. Where he is right now, he's probably number 6 or number 7. Yeah. All right. Any more questions, Anab?
Yeah, I could agree with that definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's all. Thanks for having me here, and thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always cool to have first time callers. Just a reminder to anyone, if you do call in, link is in the description, and make sure to turn off your YouTube and just be on StreamYard so that you don't have the lag and the delay that I suspect Anab was dealing with. There is one more thing that I wanted to talk about before I get to that little bit of personal anecdote shit. And that was largely just how I feel the Raptors will be able to pivot away from things if RJ and Scotty come out as well as I think they're going to come out. Because again, some guys come into the, off season after months off, right? Some guys come into the off season swinging, right? And I think that to some extent, RJ and Scotty have had an extended runway going back. Like, they didn't play a ton of minutes towards the end of last season. largely because the Raptors were tanking. Scottie had the injury, so they don't have that progressive fatigue. I like to think of players in terms of 12-month cycles, and sometimes a deep playoff run can mean a slow start, right? Or a rough summer can mean a slow start, or an injury or a surgery. So, touch wood, as of right now, RJ, Scotty, and Emmanuel quickly are all very much clicking in the right direction and they're moving up. I can tell you that these guys have absolute, absolute playoffs on their mind. No one is talking about tanking. No one is talking about Cooper Flag in these settings that I'm aware of. And so I think it does come down to that, right? Anab saying I was not able to hear anything on the studio, so I had to turn on YouTube, and indeed there was a delay. Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't know why that would have happened, but we can certainly try again at some point. I do think ultimately, it's just going to come down to this. The Raptors have some shiftability. I don't want to go into the season with Kelly Olynyk as our backup center. I think that would be disastrous. And, whoever they fill with that final slot, I expect it to be Christian Koloko, but if it's not Christian Koloko, it's going to be somebody. Tyus Jones going to Phoenix is criminally insane. He signs on the minimum, and Tyus is a really good player. So the fact that Gary Trent Jr. signed a minimum contract is crazy. The fact that Tyus Jones signed a minimum contract is somehow crazier, like way crazier. So Lakes Big saying Luca, Wemby, Edwards, Ja, Maxi, Chet, Scotty, Halliburton. Is that an order? You put Luca over Wemby? I wouldn't. I love Luca, but no chance in hell I'm putting Luca over Wemby right now. So if we're talking upside, we're talking production. We're talking production, I hear you. If we're talking upside, no chance. So Wemby, Luca, and after that, I think I can start having a conversation about Scotty. So honestly, if Scotty hits his max upside, I think he's a better player than Luca. If he hits max upside. If every player hits their max upside, I think Wemby's the best player. Scotty's the second best player. Everything hits. Everything has to work, okay, for that to happen. Don't troll me and say I said that Scotty was a better player than Luca. I don't think anyone thinks Scotty's a better player than Luca right now, right? But Luca's way, way, way further ahead. One of the conversations Joe and I were having was about how basketball is taught in Europe versus how it's taught in the States, and how much further European players are at the same age than their American counterparts. It's insanity, man. Like Luca's ball skills at the age of 18 were ahead of most NBA players. Like, I don't think people understand how good this kid was at 18. That's not just because he's gifted. He is gifted, of course. But even when you look at the ball skills of a Nando De Colo at the same age, right? Like, so it's not Luca. You know what I mean? Most European prospects are going to struggle because of physicality, not because of skill development, right? So even Wemby's skills are so far ahead of most bigs in the United States. So again, bigs in the I blame AAU. You could blame AAU, but would you trade Yak in a BI trade if Eve Misi is included? Ironically, Joe and I talked about Eve Misi as well, so that was cool. Would I trade Yak in a BI trade? Yeah, of course I would trade Yak for Brandon Ingram. I'm not crazy. I think Brandon Ingram's next contract is going to be crazy. I think that's tough. Anab Udine saying Luca is over 25. Yes, you are correct. Luca is now 25. Vision saying very naive to say Raps don't have cap space. No team has cap space for superstars. Salaries go out like Leonard trade, Durant trade, Wiggins. Others went out with LeBron returned. Raps will make space. I don't think you should be calling anyone naive, dude. No offense. If you are slotting in Brandon Ingram at $40 million with Emmanuel quickly at 32 million and Scotty at nearly 50 million, like, you're in trouble. You're in big time trouble. And I suggest you refresh on the new CBA before you make that assumption that that is a tenable future, because it's not. Because you don't have a single center on that, and I don't necessarily think you have pieces that fit very well together. And I'm not really sure Brandon Ingram is a $40 million player. In fact, I would rather have Trey Murphy on this team. Facts. I would much rather have Trey Murphy on this team than Brandon Ingram. I like BI. I'm not kidding when I say that. Brown, Jakob first for Ingram, Misi, Hawkins, SP. Come on. This is the most homer trade in the world. I will tell you this right now. Brown, Jakob, and a first wouldn't even get you Ingram, much less Ingram plus Misi plus Hawkins. Bro, what are we doing here? Hawkins was a borderline lottery pick last year. Eve Misi was about top 15 on their board, from what I understand. So that's basically 2 lottery picks that they'd be giving up, plus Brandon Ingram to get back 2 role players and a first. Come on, man. No chance in hell. You could not do this. Like, I will bet you anything that they wouldn't do this with 3 firsts attached. Not a chance. No, 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 no. No. No, no way. Bro, like, this is not Bradley Beal. Like, yeah, Brandon Ingram is not a negative asset. Like, he's not Zach LaVine. And even Zach LaVine, like, I think a lot of people just forget how good Zach LaVine is. He's not that bad either. It's just in the modern NBA with the current CBA, I just feel that a lot of people are becoming devalued because of how much money they make. Andrew saying you might not even get BI for that. Facts. You wouldn't get BI for that. That is some super homerism, SP. I appreciate the homerism, though. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'd rather you be a homer than a hater. So I appreciate you going there. All right. We could talk about the anecdotes. I don't really have too much to say about, Team USA versus the world. I mean, we'll wait and see tonight. Team USA plays. We will see. We'll see what they look like when the games start to count. And the games have officially started to count. Give me a shout out. Give this video a like if you ended up liking the flag stuff yesterday. My girlfriend was just very excited to watch all the countries with the flag. She got crazy excited when Bulgaria went by and Serbia went by, etc. Me personally, I'm not really of the, I don't really care, frankly. Maybe that reflects poorly on me. I don't necessarily care for the television side of it. I wish I was there. That would be beautiful. If I was there, I would love to see it. I love seeing the countries and how proud everybody is. But for me, the festivities, like the dancing and stuff on the television and all that stuff, that to me is just, it's not my brand, right? It's not like I don't care about that stuff. So the opening shows and stuff, but I'm really excited to watch all the athletes compete. That to me is the fun part, right? Like to watch these people, like, you consider how hard you train, how hard you work as a volleyball player, track and field star, whatever your sport is, how hard you have to work to do for a minute. That's your time. 1 minute. That's your run. And if you fall, that's it. The pressure is there's a reason why so many people tune in to watch the Olympics, because it's like the stakes are so high and you know how hard these people have to work to get there. And so, I'm rooting for it sounds stupid, but I'm saying I'm rooting for everybody. I'm rooting for all these athletes to do well and to represent their countries. People were complaining they couldn't stand because the crowds were so deep and no stands. Yeah. I think the World Cup, the Olympics, all these big international events, they do tend to expose the countries a little bit, right? And countries are very, very cautious to not want to make a bad impression on the world because everyone's watching, right? So if you have a demonstration or you have an entire homelessness encampment, a homeless encampment right outside the stadium or something like that that pops up, people could be like, oh my God, Paris has a whole lot of homeless people. And so, a lot of governments will do they'll be extra vigilant about policing these events because, of course, safety comes first, but also it is a tourism draw, right? Not that anyone needs more of a reason to go to Paris, right? But I understand it. It's your country, your city on the big stage hosting this big event, and nobody wants to have anything embarrassing happen. So I completely understand it. I saw a diver slip off the diving board this morning and lose medal. It's wild how little the margins are. Yes, it was a quote that I was reflecting on yesterday, which is that the gap between success and failure is less than 1%. In almost all cases that you can really think about, it's usually 1%. The problem is it's usually 1% amplified over a long period of time, right? So it's 1% with interest. We did I used to be a financial advisor, and I used to work at a hedge fund, so two separate jobs that I had in my early 20s. And it's crazy how that profession teaches you about how those small little details matter so much. So for instance, if you're paying 1.6% for a fee versus 1.9%, and then when you start to break down the math of what 0.3% means over 35 to 40 years, you start to climb into a lot of money, like tremendous amount of money that you could never think about. This $8 and $12 here and $15 here could ever lead to $100,000, but it does really quickly. And so therein lies the notion of it's about those details. It's the devil is in the details. My um my mom was born on August 4th. And so I made a goal for myself. Every year I try to do something good for myself or something different on her birthday and on her death anniversary. Those are 2 days. So it's December 15th. So December 15th, 2017, I started Penn Dance, right? We had our first edition of Penn Dance. December 15th, 2010, we started Warming the Streets, right? This was a charity that I was running for a while that gives clothes to homeless people. So every year I try to do something important for me on her birthday and important for others on her death anniversary. It's a tradition that I have. And this year, on her birthday, which is, coming up in 9 days, I decided that I was going to mind the details. So I started to really just think about all the small things that I don't pay attention to, right? Like the smallest details, the 1%, the devil's in the details, right? And so yesterday, I started to notice that there's all these little corners in my house that haven't been cleaned in a while. Is somehow the mop just keeps missing that damn corner over and over, and then suddenly you start to get like shit built up on the tiles, and then there's like little bits built up all over the grout, and then there's that part that's really hard to reach behind the toilet that has like a whole bunch of like dog hair and cat hair built up. And I was like, and then my oven has this glass panel that's just got all this splatter inside of it, and I've never been able to clean it. And I realized when I was looking at it that I had to unscrew the oven in order to get inside because it's glass on top of glass on top of glass on top of glass. I don't know why. I guess because heat, you know? So yesterday from 1 p.m. all the way till 1 a.m., I cleaned all the details. Dude, all the details, man. I'm telling you that there is not one morsel, one corner in this home that is not clean right now. Okay, well, this studio is not clean right now, but other than the studio, everything was cleaned. It was like every detail, and yeah, it was crazy, and it just got me thinking about all the small things, all the small details, and so I want to meet my mother's birthday this year with a renewed sense of focus, clarity, organization. Right? There's a lot of things, as I've alluded to many times on this channel, that I don't do for myself, or I don't do well enough, or I don't live up to the potential or the promise of something. And I just felt, you know what? This is the end of that. I gotta stop. And I messaged Joe 2 days ago, got the interview done today. I'm like, wait a second. How many people have I actually messaged? I messaged Jeff's trainer. Well, actually, he messaged me. So that's in fairness, that didn't even get that. I don't even think I don't think I messaged Scotty's trainer. Brian messaged me. So this is the first time that I've ever even like initiated contact with somebody. And I'm like, you wimp. You have 10,000 subscribers. You have this really big platform. A lot of these people do podcasts and interviews with people who have who get 60 views per video. You have a really big megaphone here. Why don't you do more? Like, why don't you reach out to people? What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, I think you know what? It's so funny. The way my mind works is so stupid sometimes. I thought if I reached out to Joe, and I thought about it initially. Initially, I thought about it when I was playing his interview. I thought about it, and then I don't know. Maybe I struggle with low self esteem because I thought to myself, well, who the hell am I to to ask this guy to devote an hour to me? Who am I? What am I? I'm not like, am I king? Am I CEO? What the fuck am I? You know, maybe this is a thought that most people don't have, but this is a thought that certainly went across my head. It's like, who am I to demand an hour of this guy's time? What can I give him back for his hour? You know what I mean? It's such a stupid thing. I also, of course, because of crippling anxiety as a child, had this thought of like, oh my God, what if he's a super Pascal Siakam fan because he's from Cameroon and he doesn't like you because you talk so much shit about Joel Embiid and that you weren't overly supportive of Pascal Siakam in his last year. What if he just yells at you? You know what I mean? Like such silly things sometimes that just get in the way of us asking. And it's so funny that there's something that I've learned is be your best friend, right? Guide yourself as you would wish someone else would guide you, right? Oh, little John calling in. Little John, what's up?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I wasn't expecting you to immediately go to me, but I just like after that game, I really had I had a thought that do you think Masai has been planning for kind of just like 2028 with Shea, maybe just like trying to clear the decks and let the young guys play, and do you think like there's some type of like Shea return to Canada, like that's kind of just like hiding in plain sight?
You said kind of a lot there. I think you were trying to muster up the courage to say, is Shea coming to Canada?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No.
You don't think he's that type of guy,
No.
or you don't think that's like in his thoughts right now?
No.
Because I think that'd be pretty cool because with all the guys that have left, finally having like a Canadian superstar, like
Why is
because
that why is that an important thing for you?
I'm looking at it as a Raptors fan, so like having someone at that level playing for the team, but
Well,
I wouldn't be mad at him if he thought otherwise, but I just think that's kind of like there.
2028, right? Like I don't
It's a long time from now.
It is a long time from now, number 1. Number 2, I think the core that OKC will build up around him will be very appetizing. He strikes me as a very loyal person, which is great. Scotty's also a loyal person, right? So you sometimes see the benefits of that loyalty, which is to say that leaving a really good winning situation when you're a loyal person is usually very difficult. It's so as much as I would love to tell you that, it's possible, I very, very much doubt it. Like you would have to clear up a super max slot for him. OKC will always have the advantage in re-signing him because they'll be able to give him the extra deal. So even if he goes the route that LeBron James did later in his career, where he signs 1-and-1s and whatever, I'm not really sure. And honestly, he'll be north of 30 at that point, won't he?
By the way, I think that LeBron method, I think that might be just exclusive to LeBron. I don't think we're going to see that type of stuff. Maybe from Giannis or something, but I feel like the next generation of superstars, they're going to like do just maxes or 3 years
Right.
and two-and-ones and something like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So at
But
2028, Shea will be 30. So you'll be
yeah,
signing him from 30 to 35. And he's not the burstiest athlete, but he's also very, very reliant on skill. And so he should be really good from 30 to 35. He won't be
he
he
should
won't
be.
be a
Yeah.
top 5 player, but he might be still a top 10 player. I
Yeah.
think if you tell me that he ends up finishing his career as a role player or a third option or something in Toronto, in 2035 or something, that I would believe more than him
Wow.
leaving OKC in his prime. Because again, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, all the boatload of draft picks, just wait to see what they do with those draft picks, man. Because they're not using all like 20 plus of them. So it's definitely like they have the assets to go out and get whoever they want, really. If at some point this year they want to convert Isaiah Hartenstein into Lauri Markkanen and 4 first round picks is what it takes to get that done, and they think they're on the precipice, like he's probably going to win a championship in the next 3 years. I would bet money that he's going to win a championship. It's hard to leave it's hard to leave a program that you've won a championship with,
Well,
or You could
Yeah.
also look at it as maybe he has the Kawhi mentality of, as long as I deliver a championship to OKC, I'm free to go, which is what Giannis's mindset was. I don't see it though, man. I wouldn't bet it. And then also, I don't think the Raptors can have the cap space at that point.
But I'm sure if they were given any like just if they were ever like given any like thought of, or Shea ever really reached out or get like kind of just put it out there, I'm sure they would clear it up just like they did for Giannis. I don't know. I just feel like with all the Canadian players, you would expect, at least
It's
of
hard
course,
to clear up
Wiggins
that
and
kind of cap space when you have Scotty in his prime, right? It's easy to do that when you're drifting in the middle of nowhere in the post Kawhi era and you're trying to figure out, what you're doing with Fred and Pascal. It's completely different when you're going to be doing that with a 26-year-old Scotty Barnes,
okay.
right?
So I haven't spoken to you in a while. That quickly extension, which is now 32.5 after like people, it was just, I think it's 2.5 of incentives. So I thought, I was thinking, why would they give him that much money, even though I still think that's going to be a solid contract after the new TV deal. I was thinking, is Masai planning for like trading potentially quickly, like just let's just say he doesn't get to the level that they think he could in 2 or 3 years? Is that like a contract? So I just feel like this era is like kind of just a wait and see, and maybe there's something on the horizon like 4 or 5 years from now that besides looking at, because of course I'm sold on the outlook of the team right now, but I feel like one of these Canadian players are kind of destined to come home, and like you said, he's
He's young,
loyal,
but
but he
two of
is
them
loyal.
already came home, bro. RJ's here. Kelly's here. What are you doing?
Well, that was a trade, but I was thinking about the higher levels. But I'm starting to get really sold on RJ. Just the it's I'm getting sold. Like I've been very resistant, and I'm still waiting to see how he plays earlier in the year, because I do think basketball, like the earlier season basketball is a little different than, like, you can kind of like, the stats can be a little bit like fake in the second half of the year, kind of like we've seen that before. But that's the one thing I really enjoy about Scotty. Like, he plays his best in the beginning of the season. Like, he always comes out hard. Even his second year, like, he was pretty good for like 2 weeks, and then he
Yeah, but
kind of
that
just
was
like,
that was injuries, man. Like he's been really good prior to
yeah.
injuries,
And
right? So it's unfortunate that he's had injuries sometimes, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into a season, a couple times. But I think overall, like he's been good to start, but he's also been fantastic to finish whenever he's finished a good season. Like to finish his rookie season, he was way better than he started, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was really good to start, and then he kind of just like fizzled out. But you're right, he was better at the end. But just the efficiency with RJ is it's really glaring. Like,
Mhm.
it's I was very skeptical, I was very skeptical of it. But it's transferred to the Olympics, and
Mhm.
it's with new teammates, and just like that Knicks offense with the three lefties, that Tibbs offense where it's kind of just isolation, and here, they just late shot clock pitching it to RJ and giving him some, like trash, like those bad possessions. It looks like it just looks like he's a guy who's gonna flirt with like high 50 true shooting, which is what you want from him, not low 50s. And like, I think that's real. So I'm getting like more excited about next year. And like, I don't know if you saw the win total. Um, I'm definitely taking the over on that if they decide not to tank.
31.5.
Yeah, I mean, you're telling me they can't go 32 and 50?
I mean, yeah, I mean, as long as you're betting responsibly, I don't have an issue with taking the
I
over
mean,
on the Raptors.
I'm not betting, but I just feel like that's such a great bet. Like 32 and 50 with about 5-6 teams that are probably going to be worse than you.
Again, the Raptors can tank like no other team, right? Like they
Yes, they,
they have the ability to strip it down to, there's nobody to satisfy at this point. There's so much on the line at the top of this draft. And so I was thinking, touch wood, I hope it doesn't happen, but like a Scotty Barnes injury would literally shut down this team, and they would just send
Oh
people
yeah.
home.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, so you're teetering on, and you
Also,
consider
A Jakob injury would be probably the second. He's probably the second most important guy, just from an injury standpoint. I think you can do without Quickly and RJ, even though I think Quickly is probably will be better than Pirtle next year. I think a Jakob injury, just because there's no size, that's a sneaky like they
Mhm.
sit him for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You could go like on a losing streak pretty easily.
Yeah. Anyways, any final thoughts?
What were your thoughts on Grady's summer league?
Inconsistent.
Do you have a fear that he's not as good of a 3-point shooter as is it, because the difference between 40 and 37 is 38 is pretty big.
No, I'm not. I'm not at all
You
concerned.
think he's going to be 40 plus year in year out in his prime?
100%. 98%.
Yeah, well, because just the shooting is just on the G League level, and so again, this is he's young, but
I
I just feel I
I
have
just
a
don't
thought like
I don't care. Like what shooting is shooting. Like
I feel like he's more of a basketball player than a shooter. That's kind of my assessment a year or so in, and
but
that's a good thing, but that's also a bad thing because I feel like his shooting has to be like at an A+ level. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, he's a great shooter. He's a fantastic shooter. I
I haven't
watched
seen fantastic. It's just it's not going in like at that level. But again, you
you
can
watch
project.
did you watch his college tape
I
at
know
all?
it was. I went back and looked at the stats. It was like 5 or 6 attempts out.
I don't even give a shit about the stats. I'm talking
I
about
know
the
it
tape.
was
Like
tough,
you
tough shot.
watch
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so I mean
The offense was built around him. Yeah, I get it.
yeah, like it's just I think Grady's a fantastic shooter. The fact that he's had to put on some strength to really build up some of his range and find his footing at the NBA level, it's not uncommon for shooters to struggle in their first year. If he starts dipping from the line and his percentages continue to stay at 34, 35, 36%, yeah, then we can have this conversation in 2 years. But I don't think there's anything I saw last year that makes me doubt that he's going to be a great shooter. I'm more concerned about his overall around game. And again, it's really hard on a 1.5 game sample size to be like, okay, well, this guy was great or this guy was not great, in summer league because he really struggled in that second game and then he got injured. But you don't
Well,
know.
yeah, the
You
second game,
don't.
I don't care about the second game. I was just looking at the fact that he didn't hit a three in the summer league. I don't really care about the percentages. He did have the first game again. I think it was like 17, 18, 8, 17, 8, or 10 and 6. Like that's insane for a shooter.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
that's just insane for a shooter. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Peace. Have a good one. Okay. Couple things. So Deshane, you can call in if you want. This comment here, this I understand you've already apologized. So I'm going to try to approach this with. I'm going to try to be grown up about this, bro. How do you have so much time talking about basketball at all times of the day? Do you work? Do you still live with your parents? You can go on for hours. Now I understand you already apologized because some people got on you in the chat, but I just want to address, a couple things here. Number one, this is work. Whether you decide to see this as work or not is irrelevant to me. It is work. Making content in the age where content consumption is what it is, making videos, growing this channel is work. It doesn't feel like work though, but that's the blessing, right? So just because I'm not a plumber does not mean that I'm not working. Number one. Number two, at all times of the day, how much work do you think goes into 2 hours or 1.5 hours to 2 hours a day? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I barely sleep if you can't tell by my face. So, you know what I mean? Third thing, my parents are dead. So clearly, I set myself up for life pretty well because I lost my dad when I was 13 and I lost my mom when I was 20. And I've been working since I was 12 years old. Do you know why I worked when I was 12 years old? I'll tell you. I worked when I was 12 years old so that I didn't have to work when I was 30 years old, so that I could do things like this and, do things like make films or do things like write a book or do things like write 44 scripts or do things like appear on other shows. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact, it drives some people crazy, that I'm able to make pretty much a full-time income doing piecework and working, barely 3 to 4 hours a day. But that is, I would say that is the benefit of setting yourself up in your youth. So, in all honesty, like I appreciate that you already apologized for this. I'm not coming at this with, a lot of anger or but I hope that you will approach this with humility going forward. I don't know what it is that you do. And frankly, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care if you're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Do you? But this, do you work? Do you still live with your parents? This notion of, trying to demean somebody. Like if I had parents, I wouldn't be living with them. I bought my first place when I was 18, bro. I mean, who the fuck are you, right? Like what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I don't know. Something about this comment just really pissed me off. Partially because it was like I was thinking to myself, like, man, what if I was living with my parents? This would have made me feel really bad. Why do you need to put this energy out there? Is your life so sad? Is your life so sad that you have to go on to somebody else's comments, you know, and ask that person, "Hey, bro, like you live with your parents, you have so much free time." Like, what a condescending and douchey way to say that. So I appreciate you coming out with the apology, but I gotta be honest, this comment really just it struck a nerve. It struck a nerve. Partially, it struck a nerve because I had someone basically implying that I wasn't a hard worker when I've worked probably 5 times harder than you have in my life. It's crazy. Anyways, Tommy T saying P Square is a clown. It's obvious Rob is a workaholic and a multitasker. He runs a film festival. He's mentioned a few times his parents passed away when he was young. Yeah, it is what it is, man. Honestly, I want just let me Mr. Waves, hang tight for 1 minute. I'm gonna get in on one thing and then I'm gonna let you on. Okay. I've had to deal with a lot of narcissists in my life. For one reason or another, I am a very empathetic person. I put my heart out there. I'm a very vulnerable person in the sense that I am very open and honest with people. It doesn't mean that I'm, soft or anything like that. It just means that if I've got an issue, I'll be vocal about it. I will say that I have an issue with something, or if I have to tell the truth about something that I've done wrong, I'll admit it publicly that I've done something wrong here. I've made a mistake or whatever. So clearly, I draw in a lot of people who do that stuff. And what I've realized is that not everyone is going to appreciate you for the things that you appreciate about yourself, right? So if you're a person, who's in a situation, either you have a partner or a group of friends, or maybe you're at work and your boss just never appreciates the extra effort you put in and you wish that he would. I would just suggest to you this. Do not look for validation in the wrong rooms. You will drive yourself crazy, right? I don't know who needs to hear this. I've certainly needed to hear this many times in my life because, you know, like I remember this roommate that I've talked about a couple times, Demeter. Shout out to Demeter. And he cleaned the shit out of the bathtub when he moved in. Like he moved in, he was my roommate in 2013. And bro, like I just did not know how to clean. I was a ninja turtle. I just didn't know how to clean properly. And this dude, like, he made that bathtub look freaking brand new. And I just walked in. I was like, bro, did this guy replace the bathtub? And I remember thanking him every day for like a week because I was so thankful that someone had done that. Because he didn't have to do that. He could have just lived there for 2, 3 months and moved on like everybody else. But I really appreciated that he did that. And I made sure to thank him for that. You know what I mean? It's like I don't think he did that to be thanked. I think he did that because, he saw a person who didn't know how to do it for himself, and I appreciated that. But if I had not appreciated it, right? What if he had a roommate that he did that for that didn't appreciate it? They're like, yeah, well, whatever. He's supposed to clean the bathtub. You know what I mean? Or like if you're a kid who gets good grades, but your parents don't care about, good grades, or if you're a person who, is very altruistic. Say for instance, you pride yourself on your altruism, your community work. So maybe you don't have the biggest job, maybe you don't have the biggest house, you don't have the biggest car, but what you really get your joy from is giving back to the community, organizing a community cleanup, going and volunteering in soup kitchens. Maybe that's how you think you are best served in the world. But you have parents who are very money minded, very marriage minded, very family minded, and all they can see in you is someone who has not started a family and doesn't make six figures. And they try to make you feel bad about it all the time. They're trying to make you feel bad about it. And you're like, God damn it, I spend 20 hours a week helping homeless people. Why don't they ever appreciate that? And to you, I will say, because they're not supposed to. They are not supposed to. They're never going to. They are never going to appreciate you. So you need to go and find people who appreciate you for the things that you do. You know, I am so happy that there are people in this community who can see that I have grown over the last year. That means you're paying attention. Hopefully, that means you're paying attention, that you're not crazy. I've noticed that growth in myself too. There's this old adage, if you want to make a very strong impression on someone, give them a compliment for something they had to work really hard to achieve. Don't compliment them on their looks. They probably didn't have to work very hard on that. Compliment them on something they had to work hard at, like how they speak, especially if they're an immigrant, like me, who had to learn English when I was 5 years old. When people compliment me on my vocabulary and my English, I'm always like, yeah, I worked hard for that one, right? Or for instance, I don't say as often on these podcasts. That's something I'm having to work very hard to. That's something I'm having to work very hard on as well. So again, random thing to say that being around people. P Square saying thank you for that. I could have jumped off and ran. I 100% own this. Big on you, man. That's big on you. And if I went a little bit back at you too much, I apologize as well. So good for you for having the maturity to do that. And shit on me for not having the maturity to let this go, because once you apologize, this should have been over. And honestly, me having to respond to this is my own bullshit. It has nothing to do with you. All right. So KAS 2929 facts, Rob. Everyone I run into that hates on you was from years and years ago. Absolutely. I talk to people. I bumped into someone at a Raptors game once who tried to troll me for something I said in 2006, 2005. And I was like, man, that's almost 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that's a long time to hold something against someone. I hope you get help soon. And at that point you do hope that someone would forget and move on or something like that. It wasn't even that bad a thing. But that's what it is. That is what it is. Internet is a tough situation when we don't talk face to face. Yo, some people get real confident, maybe irrationally confident talking shit to people on the internet. I don't know. I think it's a good litmus test to say, would you say this to a person in real life, right? Rue saying Gulag been empty for a minute, Jason. Yeah. Okay, 2 super chats here. Jason Watson, thanks a lot, man. As always, you make great content. That's work. Trust me, I have done it. Yes, I have seen your work. KAS, $2. I think I speak for a bunch of us. We appreciate you. Thank you so much again for the super chat. That's really nice of you. KAS saying, after watching for a few years now, Rob has improved on himself so much. Thank you. Thank you. I sometimes struggle with that because, I used to watch, I had a goldfish. This is going to be a little bit crass, but bear with me for a sec. I used to have a goldfish who used to poop, right? I don't know if you've ever seen a fish take a shit, but it's really funny. It comes out in like almost like noodles. And it would go back and then it would see this thing falling and it would try to eat it. But then obviously it would realize that it was its own shit and it would let it go. And then it would go and it would come back and then it would try to eat it again and realize it was shit and let it go. And he used to do that 3-4 times before it finally passed to the bottom. And you think to yourself, are we all sometimes like goldfish? We keep dating the same version of the same person, having the same mistakes over and over. And something about that goldfish that I would just watch do this and laugh, as he would go back and forth, trying to avoid the shit, but always kept eating the shit. I just thought to myself, Like, what's the shit that I keep eating? You know what I mean? Like, what's that thing that I keep doing that I'm not realizing that I'm doing? Am I torpedoing personal relationships? Am I cheating myself short every single time? Am I self-sabotaging myself every single time? You know, what is this thing that I am failing to recognize about myself that is equivalent to this goldfish? Because, you know, we are master manipulators of ourselves. We can convince ourselves of a lot of things, right? If we want to believe that we have improved, we'll find a whole bunch of people who agree that we've improved. We'll call everyone who thinks we haven't improved haters. I think that it's important to engage with your haters, but I think it's also important to realize that haters will be haters forever, right? So it's important to, you know, accept that when someone says you're being rude, to understand that there's probably some truth to that. It's probably not all wrong. Maybe it's partially wrong, but it's not all wrong. So Joshua Erdman saying, can the Raptors make the playoffs this upcoming season? Yes, they can. P Square saying, no, don't say sorry about it, bro. I have learned so much about you from this and respect you so much. Appreciate it. Hey, man, this Raptors drought is killing me, fam. Well, Raptors basketball will be back on in October. So we will see. And look out for that video with Joe coming out hopefully on Monday or Tuesday. I would put some work into it, not too much work. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like over processing the shit out of it. I think my last interview with Brian, I think I clipped too much and it just got jumpy. So, you know what? Y'all want to watch it? Watch it. It's beautiful. We talked about everything. We talked about early Masai. We talked about, you know, working with Yuri Shamshe. We talked about Yves Misi. We talked about Pascal and Joel Embiid and Christian Koloko. We talked about Africa basketball. We talked about Gilbert Arenas' comments about Sudan, South Sudan. We talked about Luol Deng. We talked about what makes a prospect good. We talked about him meeting Yuri Shamshe and what he saw. I'll tell you right now, this guy had, like, first of all, he's not bullshitting when he says this. I asked him straight up, if I was a GM for a top 3 team and I called you asking about this client, would you think I was crazy? And if you were a scout, would you advise me against that? And he said, no, bro. I have faith. I have a lot of faith that this kid is going to turn into a lottery level talent for this team within a couple of years. And y'all going to be sitting there saying, okay, Raptors really fucking robbed the grave with this one. Like they robbed the cradle on this one, right? Because you got this kid at 57, and I'm telling you, man, like he is really close to a lot of really high lottery picks in terms of where they were, where he is right now. And from what I got from Joe, he was talking about how he said that he will be ahead of most of these guys when he's 21. And by the way, one of those guys that he was talking about was Joel Embiid. The other one was Pascal Siakam. So, you know, like, not gonna lie, I'm getting Giannis vibes from this 18-year-old. Well, he is built on similar juice as Giannis for sure. Noble Venom saying, if you had to pick USA or the field, who would you bet on? If I had to bet real money, USA. If I had to bet like Rob hypothetical bragging rights, I would bet the field. Jacob saying, very exciting player, no doubt. The potential jumps off the page. Absolutely. You know, but as much as, you know, you want to write home about the metrics and the jumping and the speed and all that stuff, right? When is the video going to come out of Yurish? Are we talking about the Yuri Shamshe video or the interview? If the video is going to be next week, the interview is also going to be next week. Yeah. Facts. All right. I'm going to talk to y'all later. This is just shy of an hour and a half. Hopefully, this is digestible and hopefully the end didn't get too rambly. And yeah. Alrighty. I'll talk to y'all later. And thanks a lot for tuning in to the 180 to 150 of you who are bouncing in and out. Thank you so much. And I always appreciate y'all showing support. And I'll definitely be watching USA tonight. That'll be really interesting. And yeah, make sure to hit like on this video on your way out. I would really appreciate it. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.